Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In today's episode, I weirdly forgot to take my meds last night, so I took them in the morning because I didn't sleep, and then I slept the entire day. I'm actually still tired, but I have made a dedicated effort to upload these videos every day, so I am continuing to do that, no matter how tired I am. So today, well, rather, let's start with last night. When I couldn't sleep, I ended up going on a subreddit called Gender Cynical, and they had a link to a website called Women Are Human, specifically an article titled Trans Paradoxes, Self-Contradictions of the Gender Identity Movement. And I thought it would be fun to see what they consider hypocritical and my own thoughts about it. Because, why not? It's a sleepy day, so let's just have some fun poking at TERFs with a very short stick for a bit. They have like a teeny tiny paragraph about what this is, and then it's just the list. And there's like 66 items on it, so we may not get through everything today, but we're definitely going to hit the high points. Starting with paradox number 1, where there's a column and it says on the left side, gender is innate and the brains of trans women, of course they use quotes, match bio women's brains. And then there is another thing that says on the right, trans women need women to teach us how to walk, do makeup and fashion, and all other things that come naturally to women. So when I read this last night, I just immediately had to stop right there, and it was just like, is this how the entire thing is going to be? The spoilers of the matter is, it is. I didn't realize that if you were biologically a woman, you just naturally knew how to put on makeup. Also, this is especially funny because before I realized I was trans, people would say that I walked like my dad. Last I checked, my dad isn't a quote unquote bio woman. So we're just going to ignore the obvious that women teach girls how to put on makeup and all this other stuff and move on to the next one, which is TERFs are denying biological science. TERFs are biological essentialists, which isn't even a contradiction. I had to look up what biological essentialism was, and I'm going to look it up again because it's been a couple hours. And according to Google, which is according to PubMed, biological essentialism is basically about biological influences precede cultural influences. So it's the nature versus nurture, but in this case, people think that nature overrides nurture. So it kind of goes back to the first point that they said, where women just innately know how to put on makeup. But from what I can tell, biological essentialism is mostly bunk. So it's not hypocritical to say they're denying biological science. Now, sex and gender are not the same, and referring to a person's biological sex misgenders that person. They're very obtuse, aren't they? When you are referring to a person's biological sex, unless you are doing so in a context in which it's necessary, then you're probably misgendering them, especially if they're trans or NB. So, unless you're their doctor, maybe you should just refer to them as their gender. Next is sex as a social construct. And then gender is a biological reality. It's a feeling, but a really valid, true feeling. This feels like they've mixed up sex and gender. Though sex as we currently understand it, is also a bit of a social construct. It's pretty interesting. Humans are actually considered bimodal, which means that we do tend to have a preference of our um, sex being two divisions, male and female, but there is a significant population that has overlap, and that is simply because both you can have chromosomes be arranged differently without even knowing about it unless you get them sequenced. You can have differing levels of hormones, all this stuff. Like, there's so much that goes into biological sex as a human, and they really like to try and make it just your chromosomes or just your dick. So we'll leave that alone. Um, Gender is innate and immutable. Biology is an arbitrary social construct imposed on newborn babies by doctors. Well, once again, I feel like they're switching words. Biology is innate. It just happens to be a lot more complicated than TERFs want to believe it is. And gender is definitely an arbitrary social construct imposed on newborn babies by doctors and by people. Next is gender as a social construct, followed by 3 points on the right side. People can be born the wrong gender. Liking the wrong toys, clothes, and hobbies is a clue that a child was born into the wrong body. Fix children who can't fit gendered expectations by using gendered pronouns, prescribing them puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, and putting them on the path to surgeries. Well, on the left-hand side, gender is a social construct. On the right-hand side, people can be born with the wrong gender. Incorrect. People can be classified as the wrong gender because of their external genitalia when they're born. Liking the wrong toys, clothes, and hobbies is a clue that a child was born into the wrong body. Partially incorrect. They're born into their body. I'm not really a fan of the this is the wrong body aspect of things, but it can be a clue. So it isn't hypocritical. If you are a trans boy who ended up growing up really liking more traditionally masculine things, it could be a clue that you are trans. It could also just be that you are a boy or you are a girl who likes more masculine things. That's why it's only a clue. Fix children who can't fit gendered expectations. No, you only do this if the child wants to be referred to by different gendered pronouns, giving them puberty blockers. And when they are older and more capable and more secure in their choice, giving them transitional hormones and possibly surgery. Usually that would occur when they are significantly older or already an adult. And shockingly enough, puberty blockers can help them keep from feeling like they are miserable. So, let's go to the next one. Sex is not real because intersex conditions / disorders of sexual development exist. Next one. Okay, true. Most trans people don't have the chromosomal disorders that lead to disorders of sexual development, but just because the fact that intersex conditions even exist prove that trans people are the sex they say they are. No. First off, nobody knows what their chromosomes are unless they get them sequenced. For all these TERFs know, they are all secretly XXY and thus are intersex themselves. Who knows? I don't. I don't know what my chromosomes are. I haven't gotten them sequenced. And also, intersex conditions don't necessarily prove that trans people are the sex they say they are. It just proves that biology is more complicated than you want it to be. Being trans is just about finding and accepting your true innate self. Encouraging young people to accept their own bodies is transphobic conversion therapy. Young people must be put on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and be allowed to undergo surgery as soon as possible in order to be their authentic selves. No. It's like they like to put a really simple thing and they're like, aha, it's a gotcha moment because you feel this. And it's like, no, we don't feel like this. Puberty blockers are shown to have like a chance of lessening bone density if used for a long amount of time, and there have been cis people who have been put on puberty blockers when they were young who ended up regretting it. However, they are still overwhelmingly considered safe, and no one is encouraging young children to go on HRT or to have surgery. Nobody. So let's just move away from that straw man to the next one. This one has 2 bullet points on the left side and 1 on the right side. So, transgender people do not have a medical condition. We were once classified as having a medical condition due to medical bigotry. Trans people are battle ready. Gender dysphoria is a medical condition, and we must support state-sanctioned taxes towards treating trans health with hormone therapy and surgeries. Trans lives depend on it. It's like they forget that more than one type of trans person exists, or more than one trans person exists. Also, this is correct. Being trans isn't a medical condition. Gender dysphoria is. You don't have to have dysphoria to be trans. So we're skipping that because that's dumb. Sexual orientation is attraction to a person's gender. You can't tell a person's gender just by looking at them. Still not mutually exclusive. I've known allosexual people who found themselves sexually attracted to someone because they thought they were a certain gender. Then that person was like, no, actually I'm this. And they're like, oh, never mind then. So, the point. Next, being trans is not a mental illness. We'll spiral into depression and commit suicide if you misgender, mention our biological sex, or dead name, use our former name. I hate my body so much that I want to chop off my genitals / commit suicide. Addressing criminal court judge. Your Honor, I committed this violent sex crime because I'm experiencing gender dysphoria and it interfered with my ability to think clearly. This mitigating mental state entitles me to a less severe prison sentence or no prison time. And there's a link that leads to another thing that talks about, it's on their website still, and it's like convicts who walked free or nearly after pleading transgender. We're just not going to touch on this shit because they like to cherry pick their cases. However, once again, being trans is not a mental illness. Gender dysphoria is. Also, if you have your existence constantly invalidated by your parents and loved ones, then yeah, you are going to have a higher likelihood of depression and suicide. And more than one trans person exists. So, let's go to the next one. I just want to be treated like everyone else. You must disregard science and reframe your entire understanding of grammar to accommodate my wacky neo-pronouns. It sounds like someone ran into a child that wanted to be referred to as bun, and they're still bitter about it. You know what? Fuck you. They're children. They're allowed to experiment. No one knows who's trans. You can't tell without checking genitals or testing chromosomes. Trans people have always been around. You see trans people daily and don't know they're trans. Next one. Kids and strangers misgender us when they should know we're trans. People target and oppress us because they can tell we're trans. We get sexually rejected because people can tell we're trans and won't give us a chance. More than one trans person exists, and most trans people on like dating apps and stuff will disclose they are trans ahead of time so they don't get blindsided by a violent crime once it's revealed if, say, they are pre-op or refuse to be op. So let's just move on. It's better a transition kid than a dead kid. If they don't get puberty blockers and vasectomies, they will never pass and it will inevitably drive them into suicide. You were gender nonconforming as a child and grew to middle-aged adulthood without medical intervention. You're just a closeted, self-hating trans man, trans woman. You're holding brave, out trans people back by contradicting our narratives. I've never heard someone say that. You are literally killing trans women when you name or discuss any part of your anatomy, such as a vagina, even if in regards to your health. We don't have those body parts, and we get super triggered by any reminder these parts exist. Any reminder of your anatomy is invalidating and making us suicidal. We demand access to women's locker rooms, public showers, and spas. It's not for you to decide how it will make trans women feel to see naked women and girls. We're very comfortable discussing vagina when the discussion involves convincing lesbians or straight men to have sex with us. I knew I wanted to be a woman after viewing women in porn. My social media profile is covered in anime porn. So, trans women that I've talked to generally understand that there are certain women's spaces that they are just not part of the conversation, including stuff like vaginal health, because unless they have like post-op surgery, they don't have a vagina or a vulva, and uterus health. As for any of this shit on the right hand side, besides the fact that like I don't understand why they care about someone's choice in porn, the fact that there are predatory lesbians that exist seems to continue to fly over these people's heads. Like, okay, everyone can self-identify. You're cis whether you like it or not, sweetie. I mean, if you feel like you are the gender that you are identified as at birth, then you are cis. It's just immutable, to use their word. Trans women of color, sex workers' lives are murdered all the time. Protect trans lives. Sex work is empowering. Sex work is literally the underground railroad for trans youth. And both of these can be true. You know what we should do? We should legislate sex work. Criminalize it. Make it legal so that people can be protected. My ex-wife and I reproduced a child with my sperm naturally. Yes, I have a biological child, but you, as a bio woman, are privileged in this female infertility discussion. Your pain of being infertile is nothing compared to my inability to be a mother because you have a womb to validate you. That's stupid. And if a trans woman has ever actually said that, then they were being stupid and petty. But I don't see that as an overarching argument. Trans people break the gender boxes people are confined to. Men wearing makeup and dresses in the media or fashion show is transphobic. If men wearing makeup and dresses is normalized, trans women will no longer be able to use these tools to signal that we're women. That is dumb. Mostly because like every single queer person, including most trans people I've met, are super into RuPaul's Drag Race, and from what I understand, the drag queens, there are some that are trans and some that are women, but they are overwhelmingly cis men. They wear makeup and present more as a woman than I ever had in my entire 28 years of life. You never have to have sex with anyone you don't want to. Excluding trans people from your pool of potential sex partners is literally transphobic. Pansexuality is the only orientation that is morally defensible. I personally have never heard of anyone say this sort of thing about being pan, but also there's some confusion about this even amongst the trans community, I have to admit. So like, if someone is saying that your genital preference is transphobic and they are not a child, it could simply be shorthand of them attempting to say the fact that you're just rejecting someone based off of their gender identity can be considered transphobic if you don't stop and think about it. Like, say you are a straight man who is attracted to women and you learn that you've matched with a trans woman on Tinder and you just reject her immediately because she's trans. Maybe she's completely post-op and you can't tell. She's just disclosing that she's trans because otherwise she could be murdered. She doesn't have a penis, but you're still rejecting her based off of her thing. It makes more sense in my head. I written something very smart down once upon a time, but I have no brain cells. Head empty. Yeet. I'm actually going to end it here because there's 66 things. I don't know how many we got through, but it's really just the same thing over and over and over again. And most of it is multiple types of trans people exist. Them purposely switching words around in their arguments to make it sound like things are inherently contradictory when they're not. And mostly just stabbing at trans women is like trans boys don't exist unless we're getting a mastectomy. And then, oh Lord, they're breaking the women, these poor lost lesbians. Um, anyway, this was not exactly fun, but I'm a sleepy bitch. And I'm probably going to go back to Minecraft and continue to flatten before I take my pills at the time I'm supposed to and actually sleep. I have other news, but I'll announce it tomorrow when I'm more awake and haven't spent 20 minutes waiting in the TERF cesspool that is this weird ass website. So, have a great rest of your day. Stay hydrated. I've got some water. I'm going to go drink it while I'm working on my thumbnail. And I will see y'all tomorrow. Bye bye.